Let's study permaculture for a little bit. This is so important. Design is really the basis of the whole permaculture system. So anytime we can apply design to our problems, then we're kind of front-loading our work. I think most of, or at least a good bit of our problems in this world are because we don't apply design. So design really excites me. You know, I keep calling for a design revolution. I think, you know, we can solve really most of the food problems, most of the energy problems with good design. And what I'd like to attempt to do is to, you know, make this kind of simple for you all and myself. I think oftentimes with permaculture, it gets so involved. You have to take a PDC to understand it, and that's like a 2-week process. There's all this other side stuff that's not really, it's important, but it's not really the most important information. So what I'm attempting to do here is kind of condense the information to what I think is the most important. And I would call it the most important because this is basically where it all starts. I mean, it's water and orientation of the sun. I mean, it's simple stuff, really. But if we get any of this wrong, then we have extra energy that has to go into our system constantly, whether heating, cooling, anything like that. So how many people have built their own homestead or are building it? Yeah, so we got like 5 people. That's pretty good. How many people have just a raw piece of land that they haven't started on? Anybody? Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Well, the most important thing is to start with water. It really is. I mean, water is our #1 element that we need. And without water, you know, none of us can survive. So this is basically just a list of the most important elements and kind of where to start. This is kind of it's called a scale of permanence, and it's the most permanent things on your homestead or on your land. So, you know, orientation to the sun, that's very basic. But if you go around looking at most houses, you know, they don't take advantage of solar gain. So, basic stuff, but we don't use it. And basically we all know it, but we still don't use it. You know, energy efficiency, when we're building a house, thinking about low maintenance. So really it's the water, the orientation, making it energy efficient, thinking about summer wind. Summer wind can cool our house naturally. And then winter wind, it's interesting, there's patterns. So to be on a piece of land, you really have to be observant. And to apply permaculture design, you have to be observant. So what you want to do, and I think most of you probably are, but when you're on your piece of land, you observe. And the major things, like I said, are the water and the sun orientation, but also over a full year cycle, you can start to map out your wind. Wind is super important. You know, you want to block that winter wind. You want to let the summer wind come in. So it's just basic. But it's like the basic stuff is where we really got to start. And if we can start thinking about like the mainframe, like when you go to build your homestead, it's all about the mainframe. It's how you get everything right from the beginning. It's kind of like your structural being of your body, your bones. You know, when you're aligned and everything works together, it's much easier. You know, and that's really what it comes down to. It's getting the mainframe right. And then you kind of, once you get the mainframe, then you could like start plugging in all these cool little extras. But what generally happens is we like to start plugging in the cool little extras and then trying to make our mainframe work with these cool little extra parts. Instead of getting our mainframe right, getting the majority of the work done early in the homestead process, the heavy lifting, you know, if you have to do any earth moving, road building. And a lot of times, you know, we're coming on a piece of land and maybe the house is already there. So we just have to work with what we have. And you know, we can apply permaculture to that. Or the road is already there, but it's in the wrong spot. But we can apply permaculture to that and fix some of those problems. Access roads, like you're reading there, they're really one of the major sources of erosion on the homestead. If you don't get your access road right, you're going to just pay for years and years and years with extra maintenance. The other thing is this living fertility machine. To think about starting your permaculture homestead and having a place on the land that generates fertility from the beginning. So if you can generate fertility, then you can kind of grow through biology fertility and spread it out on your land. Slope, especially in the mountains here, you know, slope is a big deal. A lot of us don't have, you know, we got to be really creative with the land we have. It could be seriously steep. You know, we can only use parts of it. The parts that we could use, sometimes they're terraces or small benches. Trees are a major design opportunity also. Whether it be blocking summer sun, you know, blocking the wind like we talked about earlier. Coming in from here, it's usually like the wind comes from the northwest in the winter. And that's really cool because we can use evergreens in the northwest and they don't block the sun to the house. And time. Time is our major resource that we have to work with. And I tell this story often, but you don't want to end up like me, build a homestead once and then learn about permaculture and then spend 10 more years fixing and undoing what you did to begin with and trying to get it right. So that's like doubles your time. So if we can apply good design from the beginning, have a good solid plan, take our time with that, then we're going to speed up the whole process. Really, goals are about getting clear about what you want. And I think all of us are going to be more potent with our homestead work if we're clear about what we want. And really, homesteading is about self-sufficiency. It's about everybody who signs up to be a homesteader is raising their hand and they're going out and they're saying, I am going to take care of the earth, my family, and the future. And that's what homesteading is about. I mean, it is the major political statement in the positive direction that we can make today. I don't see anything else that makes more sense. We're taking responsibility. So, you know, what are your goals on a homestead? How can you get clear about that? You know, some people only want to live, they want to live away from people and have a little, you know, spot that nobody will mess with them. Or some people may want to create like an education hub at their homestead. Or some people are doing it just for a lifestyle choice to be healthy or to eat healthy. You know, do you have a goal of producing income from the farm? All that, just starting to get clear about what your goals are so important. Because usually it's subconscious what we really want. And often if we don't explore what we really want, we don't really get it. Also, gardening, doctor ordered. Doctors are now, and I've said this before, but they're prescribing gardening for your health. And there's been a lot of science to back that up. There's science to back up putting your hands in the soil and how there's antidepressant microbes in the soil, and how that just increases your mood and makes you healthier. So, you know, these are just some of the things you can kind of think about. I think everybody should take like as long as they need, but to get super clear about what your goals are going to be on a homestead. And that just goes with knowing thyself. So ask yourself these questions. You know, these are some of the things you're going to need to be successful on a homestead. You know, are you skilled at farming and gardening? Are you skilled at building? When my family, we started our homestead, the first thing me and my brother did is we went to Blue Ridge and we took a building construction class. Because if you're going to be a good farmer, you're going to have to know how to build. Are you a problem solver? You know, I say this often also, you know, permaculture is about problem solving. Too often we get caught up in all the problems, and we can focus and identify the problems really easy in life. I mean, that's like 5% of our brain power, or not of our time, or of a conversation, you know. But we might spend 95% actually looking at the problem and may not even get to a solution, where permaculture is a solution-based system. So we kind of want to flip that around in our head and start thinking about solutions, you know. Identify the problem quickly, but then like let's spend our energy working on the solutions. This is a great one. Are you an eternal student? That's what it's about. It's about developing, you know, good habits, being an eternal student, keeping that joy for learning alive, and knowing there's so much that we can do. Homesteading is all about the hard work. So you got to know if you're cut out for it. You may not know right away, but you need to start looking at that. And that's something you can develop to become a harder worker. It's so easy not to be in this society. Multiple skills, multiple income, very important. You can really get isolated on a homestead and sign up for a life of poverty. So it's like getting your plan, kind of working towards it, developing it, you know, having it's kind of like a financial plan that has 3 or 4 legs or more to stand on. If one of those legs get knocked out, you're still standing. You're not just dependent upon one thing. So building in that resiliency into your plan. And then, can you call on people? Do you have people in your life that can help you? Super important. Here are just some, off the top of my head, some different ideas how to make money on the side on the homestead. Like I was saying earlier, you don't want to put yourself in poverty by being on a homestead, even though it's a wholesome lifestyle choice. If you don't have constant income coming in and a way of making that, then your homestead is going to pay for it, because it's going to take quite a bit of money, and you've got to feed yourself, and you got to pay the bills, and you got to do everything else. So it's this balanced approach to everything we do. So, you know, like I was saying, using your time wisely. This is so important. That hour in the evening, instead of, and I'm not preaching to anybody, this is everything that I live and learn and am a part of. Like, I could easily just get on my phone or get on the computer. You know, I don't play video games, but I could see, you know, you could waste a lot of time doing that. And the homestead is a spot that you can literally, with your time, build up a bank account if you're wise with it. And the other cool thing is you can use your time and nature, natural systems, sun, biology, natural plant growth, Like all that is just like a win, win, win. It works with us. If you put a seed in the ground, then the seed grows if you give it water and plant it. And that's just exponential from the little effort you did. Yes, you've got to tend it and you've got to take care of it and then you've got to plant it and harvest it. But really, like we're just kind of managing and working with nature, and nature is giving us this basically free energy. Nursery. I've started a nursery. My wife and I have started a nursery at our place. It's a great place to use your time wisely. You know, there's plants available that you can take cuttings off of for free and go pot up. How easy is that? That's simple. Natural system. Do you want to create an education hub? You know, you can make money doing that. What I don't want to see necessarily, unless you're just an avid farmer, gardener, but it's just to go, most homesteaders go right into vegetable production for their income. And that's kind of like a hard road. There is money to be made in growing vegetables, you know, but not a lot, and it's a lot of effort. And if that's the first thing we do, we jump right into it, then all our focus and energy is into that production system. And we haven't got our mainframe and our roots in, and then we're potentially struggling. I see so many people quit homesteading because they tried to make money growing vegetables, and they just ran it into the ground. So if you're going to grow vegetables, try to do something value added with it. You know, hemp and CBD oil, that's huge right now. Farm bill passed. You know, it's legal to grow hemp. You have to get a license, but I mean, I think this is maybe going to be overblown. Like everybody is going to be doing it. But I think enough of us are going to get into it where it's going to, you know, the price is going to drop. So I just threw that on there. Anybody else have any good ideas about how they can make some side money?
Consultation.
Love it. It's a huge one. Yep. Yeah, you can really grow your consultation business. Yeah. It's big. Any other ideas?
Farm to table events.
Love that. God, you're good. Farm to table. I love that. I think it makes so much sense to do that. Yeah. Yeah, if you farm to table, I mean, if it's your farm and your table, you got 100% of it, basically. And you're adding value to the process all the way along, instead of just wholesaling veggies. Any other ideas?
Community-supported agriculture.
Love it. Yeah, CSA. It's a big one. Yeah, people pay you to farm, and they pay you in the beginning of the season before you even plant the seeds. How cool is that? Seriously. Microgreens. I love the idea of microgreens. You know, they take such a small area to grow. It doesn't really require a whole lot of startup money to grow microgreens, and they're very expensive in the store. You know, mushrooms, we talked about consultation. You could do design work. I do a lot of design work at home. Going back to knowing how to build, becoming a skilled builder is so important. Having a workshop on your farm, you know, where you can repair stuff, you can weld, maybe you're into wood, you can do carpentry, you know, you could build furniture. For years, every winter, and I'm re-inspired to do this again. Rocco here on the farm, he's getting into woodworking, and he's really re-inspired me. Every year around Christmas, I would build my wife like a piece of furniture. You know, it's cool. It's like when you can actually, you have the skills and you're there again, you're adding value. You know, if you have a piece of wood that you mill from your property, you're not just milling that piece of wood, selling that raw product, you're adding value. You know, a lot of it is we can do out of season. Furniture building in the winter, you know, design work, we can do that in the winter or in the evening. Anyways, it's very important to think about having some side hustle. And the cool thing is when you start to have more than one skill in one field, then you have this cross-platform kind of thing that you start weaving together. And then like, because I'm a good builder and I know how to design and I know how to work with living systems, like, then I can apply that to permaculture design. And that makes me a better designer. Okay, it starts with the home. It really starts with the home. The home is zone zero. The home is all about, a healthy home is all about rhythm and ritual. And the more you can get into a rhythm, the easier things get around a homestead for you. The ritual is figuring out seasonal, appropriate kind of things you can do. St. Patty's Day, a lot of people plant potatoes. You know, it's everything seasonal, like you ramp up everything. Winter, you rest and you relax and you may do some of these side projects, but then you start planning and you're ramping up production. And spring hits, you're still ramping up. Summer, you kind of hit your plateau and then you're going to harvest and it falls off. So it's like it's a wave. It's not, you know, it's not like a flat bar. And that's why it's important, because your income is dependent upon that too. Having this kind of, where you'll make, generally we make more money in the summer and a little bit less in the winter. So if we figure out how to balance that out, then we could kind of like smooth that out a little bit. Working with the seasons. And it really starts, health really starts with gut health. It's your physical health, your gut health. I mean, it's like basic, simple stuff. I don't want to bore you guys and you're like, well, I came here to learn about permaculture and you're telling me about gut health and stuff. Well, yeah, that's where it starts. If we're not healthy, we don't take care of ourselves, you know, then we really are not going to be able to be successful on our homestead. Building, I love this. This is from Pattern Language. It's a book that talks about basic psychology and patterning of humans. And there's all these innate patterns that we have. It's a great book. And I love this. So often, people, when you get your homestead or you get a piece of land, you find the best piece of land, the best spot to build your house. It's like the most idyllic piece of pasture, piece of grass, like open, like it's perfect. And we build our house on it, and then that perfect spot is the earth underneath your house. As opposed to maybe building, you know, if you have that open pasture on your homestead, you know, something like that, just say, and you build your house here, then you've totally like screwed that up. I mean, maybe you love it and it's great, but you know, if you would have nestled that in, maybe in here or something, say this is north and south, you know, the sun is here shining this way. If you would have nestled that in, then this is like a really, and maybe this is a Topo, You know what a topo is, right? A topo is basically a contour line on a map. So we got to get really good at reading maps, but most topos are designed with 10-foot increments. So if this were a topo, this would be, this is 10 foot height difference here, something like that. So if you build in this spot, maybe this is lower or maybe the topo's higher, but you could either excavate and nestle your house in there, and then you're saving all this other earth here, all this great spot to develop later. And if you really work on kind of like the edges, developing the edges, then you're still saving the middle. And you want to save the middle as long as you can till you know what to do with it. You can really like stack the edges and work with the edges. And it has a less of an impact on the overall kind of design and function of your land if you push things to the edges and leave the middle open. So, does that make sense? It makes huge sense. Like if you go onto a piece of land and you can nestle that to where you're still adjacent to that beautiful spot, and then you're basically, you keep that and you're enhancing that. Simple. We already talked about this. Energy efficiency. Very few windows to the north. This is almost north here. And look how much glazing we have here. So a lot of heat loss. And sometimes you can't get around it. It's just there's awkward sites and things have to sit in a certain way. And sometimes you buy a house and it's like that, and you can't do much to get away from that. But you still can start to think about things and apply design to it, and perhaps you eliminate some of the windows or insulate more on the north.
So, with this house, you got to think of the overall function of this building.
Sure.
Right? It's right next to the road. You've got
Yep.
parking on that side.
Yep.
So wherever south is, that's maybe not the best place for windows because it's like a classroom.
Yep.
So you've got the open windows and the outdoor classroom.
Yep.
So it may be working,
Yeah, no, this could potentially work here, but you're still, all I'm saying is you're still losing a lot of energy, no matter what, with so much glass on that side. So, yeah, no, there's more to it, but that's like this, we're starting, when you're building something, you can start with these very basic questions. And then this is what's going to save you so much energy. This is all about energy consumption. So if we can save energy, and it's a constant thing, less energy to cool with in the summer, less energy to heat with in the winter. And that's, we're on our homestead for 10, 20, 30, how many ever years, and that piles up. So it's like making those conscious decisions from the beginning are going to change your success rate quite a bit on a homestead. Less input, and you get more out of it. You're working with nature. You're harmonizing with the patterns. Pattern language, again, talks about a sunny spot. That south-facing, having this beautiful south-facing kind of opening to the sun, right outside your front door. People like to congregate in the south. If you look at most things that have architectural details facing north, whether it be a balcony, a terrace, you'll see like sitting areas, things like that on the north side, rarely get used. Just rarely get used. Maybe a little bit in the middle of summer, but rarely get used. Deciduous trees to shade in the summer, that's huge. Say we have our slope, and this is, sun is here, basically, and we build our house here, right? Something like that. We're getting full sun basically all year round. Great in the winter, terrible in the summer. But with deciduous trees, you know, we could plant out front here. We can plant hybrid poplars that can shade this in less than 10 years. You know, the leaves fall off in the winter, so we get most of that sun in the winter. So it's using good design again, deciduous trees. So we're facing south, but then we're trying to develop strategies to shade ourselves and to conserve energy. But yeah, developing our kitchen where we can make product in it is huge, because that gives us like a twofold advantage in our kitchen, you know, from the get-go. So start thinking about all those things. This is another one from pattern language, and pattern language goes hand in hand with permaculture. It's human psychology, and it's the way things work together better when we apply design to it. So, you know, parking near the house is very important to pull stuff in and out. Not necessarily, you know, having a garage and having all that space for your car. If I lived somewhere that had a garage, you know, that would be turned into probably like a workshop or processing area. I mean, the car is not that important to me to park in the house. But pattern language, it's just the way things feel. There's this innate sense of beauty. So that's the other thing I want you guys to start weaving in, is like beauty in all this. When you're not parking the cars right beside, maybe there's a little hedge where you don't see them, and you're only 10 steps from the house or 20 steps still, so it's not hard, but it's out of the way. It adds a certain aesthetic value to what you're doing. You know, the runoff, it's huge. I mean, anytime we build anything, we're taking ground that can infiltrate water, and we're putting a hard structure on it, and then we have runoff. So we're creating a problem. So, you know, problem, solution, we need water. Water is huge. Collecting water, you know, the runoff, especially from roads, it can be directed to the side. It can be directed to the edge, to planting beds, things like that. Any questions? Comments? Yes?
So much of this energy capture starts in a home.
Yep.
And you're not building, you're already living in a place that someone else all figured out. You know, none of the jobs with what you're saying.
That's mostly what we deal with. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on how to move forward other than, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, remodel and rebuild, but that can be big money. I know you can take the time and go slow, but do you have any suggestions on how to?
Yeah. So you're still going to apply the same principles, but you're going to have to adjust your strategy. So the north, you still want to insulate. Maybe you do, you know, more insulation on the north. Maybe you get better windows in the north. Maybe you plant some of the deciduous trees in the front. You know, maybe you clear something. You're still going to apply the same design principles to it, but then you're really going to have to get crafty, you know, because yeah, you are kind of pegged into the way it already is. But you can definitely improve it. You may not get like 100%, you know, LEED efficiency standards and all this, but you can improve your efficiency. Because I do a lot of construction and earth grading and earth moving and stuff like that, I get phone calls from engineers all the time to come look at this and can you fix this? And this is a huge problem in this area. And it's really not about energy efficiency, but I just want to let you know, like when you build a house, this is our house. This happens all the time. especially if we have a basement. This is even worse. Here's your grade, basically. The grade needs to be like this, away from the house, or maybe not that steep. But to slope away from the house a little bit, and then it could kind of flatten out. But it's still, at this point, it's like 2% away from the house in each way. But that first little bit, you want like 3 or 4%. I see this over and over and over. And anybody who lives in a house with a block foundation or concrete foundation, what happens is most of the time this is flat and water comes down, and a lot of times it's even worse than flat. It's because this has been excavated, soil settles, so you'll actually have a sink here. And what happens is when it gets super cold is the soil freezes and exerts hydraulic pressure up against the foundation. And there's huge amounts of damage done every year from that. And it's just a basic, simple grading problem. But it's just getting the water away from your house. You know, water is a huge deal. Anybody have any questions on that? I'm serious, like go look at your foundations, make sure your water is running away. I know you're like, how's that permaculture? But it is, it's good design.
Any issue with, so say the slopes from front to back and then water running down the side of the foundation as opposed to straight down? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, so the water's running from front to back down the side on either side of the foundation. Does that cause the same issue?
Yeah. Yeah. You want that positive drainage away from it. Even if it's just a little bit, it's still running front to back side, but just slope it a little bit and then let it run. Yeah.
One of the houses I'm kind of responsible for is they built a road to go around the house after the house had been already built and designed. And what they did is they built the road on part of the drainage. So it's like it actually created a bump where the water's supposed to be going, but they weren't aware of that.
Yeah.
And then driving cars on that, they broke the drainage pipe.
Yeah.
They smashed the drainage pipe, so the house has water in the basement.
Yeah.
By the time it rains like now, we're going to go home and find like an inch of water in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to fix that.
Yeah, you got to fix it. And what happens is we get the major freezes, and that's when you get damage, and you get, you know, your whole basement wall will bow in and big cracks in it.
Can you build that grade just with soil, or do you have to compact it somehow?
Well, when you're
I have an old house and it's settled in one little corner.
yeah, no, you can build. You need to compact. You can put soil, but you can compact it in small layers. You know, even with a hand tamper if you have to. Yeah, yeah, just shovel it. 2-inch layers, 3-inch layers.
Gravel or anything like that, just soil, throw the soil back up to where it was.
Clay is really good around the house because clay will shed it. Another thing is, you know, kind of like the xeriscaping right around the house where maybe you do some decorative stone or something like that. Sometimes people put plastic under the stone, and that's just sheds the water away. But yeah, positive drainage around the house, so important. You know, we like to collect water off the roofs, but you need to be careful with the roofing materials. They could have lead, zinc, a lot of the kind of the shingles on a roof now have fungicides in them. So you just need to be careful and aware of that if you're going to collect the water. You just have to start thinking water. Every time, like in your mind as a permaculture designer, as a designer of your homestead, you're going to end up being like a supercomputer. You're looking at me like that's crazy. But what you're going to do is you're going to start overlaying in your brain all these different maps and information. So anywhere you go, you're going to start to recognize patterns, and you're going to start to look at things. You'll never see things the same again. So just overlaying the water. The water is basically where to start.